Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hello, magical ones. In today's modern culture, magical healing women are suppressing and ignoring the calls of their bodies in order to fit into ways of being that don't serve them, leaving them numbing their body screams and feeling unable to follow the call of their heart's desires to live as their wild and medicinal, truthful selves. So, I've created the path for those soul healing, intuitive oracles to reconnect to their wild medicine woman. Beginning in January, we will be guiding you on the path of invoking your medicine woman to reconnect with the wisdom of your body to create a soul-led life honouring your wild truth. Find out more at www.nicolebarton.co.uk/medicine-woman. In today's episode, I vulnerably freestyle on the topic of how to use our body sensations as a compass for life. I had in mind to talk about desires in this episode, but had an unexpected change as I shared from the heart on what was present for me about how it is necessary to go into our darkness to find our gold and express our soul's truth. In this episode, I illuminate how without honouring the sensations we experience in our darkness, we can't begin to fully feel the sensations of soulful aliveness. I explore how there is always a price to pay for either ignoring our body's calls or diving into them to feel them fully, and how the benefits of diving in far outweigh the suppression of sensation we are used to in our modern culture. Finally, I invite you into the deepest unconditional love of your body in all its sensation, and to harness it as a powerful and wise messenger. Welcome everyone. Today we are talking about how to use our body sensations as a compass for life. And I have to be honest, as I talk about this today, I had got in mind that when I was creating this episode, it would be all about kind of magical desires and really tuning into the kind of juicier sensations in our bodies. And then it kind of took an unexpected twist as I was planning it, and it's quite magical in a way, but also very edgy for me to share. And the reason that I'm going to be sharing it this way, rather than really talking more about the desires, is that for secret witches, it's normally the case that really we're not necessarily so in tune with, initially when we start walking the path at least, desires. So to go in and start diving in with looking at how we can tune into the rich, juicy, alive sensations in the body, for some secret witches can be kind of almost unobtainable at first. So what I am going to dive into is really about using our body's sensations as a compass for life, in that we need to firstly begin by really allowing ourselves to even tune into our body's sensations. And I start here because I talk in my Facebook group a lot. I do a weekly series called Witch Wound Provocateur, where I share unapologetically provocatively on a range of different witch wound kind of triggers, I guess. And this struck me as one of those sorts of real deep-seated witch wounds, is that witches really can, particularly magical women, can really disconnect from their bodies, because often what our bodies are telling us are inconvenient, things are things that we don't necessarily want to face, and so there can be this initial disconnection from our bodies before we can even get to, and it's important to deal with that before we can even get to the kind of more juicy, alive desires and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that in before we dive in properly, because there is this real witch wound at play here. And what I mean by witch wound, I guess, is that it's really pertinent to the story of the witch. When witches were being burned for being their true selves, they would quite likely have disconnected from their bodies, because their bodies held all this wisdom, this kind of medicine that was just not accepted in their society. And it's kind of the same now. There's this real suppression of our emotions, of the sensations of our body. And this is how it really shows up in The Secret Witch. And by Secret Witch, as we always talk about, this is about magical, powerful women whose power perhaps isn't really obvious to them. But they've been using their magic in a way to kind of create what they don't want rather than what they do. So the aim of this path is to help us really hone our magic, really hone our skills in order to be able to powerfully create our lives. And so where the secret witch is at, often how it shows up in terms of the connection to the body, is that there's this real lack of safety feeling to dive into the body in case of like, well, what will we hear? What will we hear that we don't want to hear? So how this often shows up for the secret witch is that they will ignore their body, they will disconnect from it, they'll numb its calls, including all the sensations that just don't feel that they are going to be approved of. They will suppress parts of themselves, which just leaves them really disconnected from their bodies, really feeling like out of their bodies. And I've had several experiences of this in my life as a secret witch, where I remember one, I think I've talked about my wedding on here before, I can't remember, but I was getting married, and I really didn't want to get married, but I felt that in order to gain the love and security that I desired, that this was the next step that I had to take. And I remember in that moment feeling really disconnected from my body, and it felt really traumatic. It was almost as if I was kind of watching over myself, but not really in my body. And this is one of the ways, I mean, that's quite an extreme example, but this is one of the ways that the secret witch will experience her body. And so she will not be used to, if you're listening to this, it's completely normal that you're not used to listening and using your body's sensations as a compass for life. It's likely that instead you'll actually be numbing the sensations and ignoring them and living your life in complete disconnection to your body's sensations. So, and the reason that we do that is kind of unconscious, so it's completely innocently done, but it's a way that we sell our souls in order to gain approval, in order to keep control, in order to stay secure, in order to receive love. Those are normally the ways that this shows up. Why this shows up, and it's so common. One of the perhaps most obvious ways that this shows up is in the way that women experience their monthly cycle. So there can often in the secret witch be period problems, menstrual cycle issues, whether that be pain or anything really. It's such a common one because there's this kind of sense of shame that comes in, and I think one of my previous episodes with one of my guests was about that actually, with Sean. So if you do have that experience, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more in this episode, but yeah, that is a really juicy episode to listen to as well. So if that is you, then that's a really good one. It was about blood mysteries. But yeah, so if the secret witch is kind of connecting to her body, likely it's probably that you can name some of your emotions, name some of your feelings, and it's very rare that includes being able to label sensations. It's often that we kind of can logically describe what's going on, like, oh, well, I'm feeling sad, or, whatever the emotion is, I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling guilt. But we're not used to in this culture naming the sensations in our bodies that are associated with those feelings and emotions. So that is the invitation here, in order to be able to go into using our body as a compass for life. And so really connecting into our bodies is what does offer us the route to being able to fully express our truth. So in that way, sensations are a complete compass for all of our life, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the kind of sensations that we would typically want to avoid, sadness, grief, shame. Those are the emotions, with the sensations. It doesn't matter if it's an emotion that we want to avoid feeling in our bodies, or whether it's desire, or something juicy, something that feels alive, like joy, or just any of the more positive emotions that we might want to feel. Whatever is going on, if we are ignoring our body's sensations, we are going to be ignoring our body's sensations across the scale of all of it. So it's really quite important that you look into choosing into the practice of tuning into your sensations in order to, if you desire to, to create a magical life, which is what we're all about here at The Secret Witch. This is the path. Our path is to really dive into creating a magical life. That is the aim. That's the vision. So my sense is that is the choice that you want to make, that you want to kind of keep walking this path. You want to be able to feel the joy, feel the magic. And so just to make it clear before we really dive in, if that is the case, then it is going to be required that you learn how to listen to your body's sensations in order to navigate as a compass for your life. Now, what I am going to share is that, well, firstly, it's something that I never expected to be sharing today when I thought I was going to be talking about desire. And when you guys selected this topic in the group, I really had no idea what this episode was going to look like, which is always the way, but I really didn't expect it to go here, I guess. So it's kind of been a magical unfolding. And I can feel the sensations, just to get you used to naming them. The sensations in my body are that I'm feeling hot, I'm feeling a little bit shaky in my hands. There's just this kind of, I can feel there's a temptation to lean into tension. So I'm really consciously choosing to snuggle into my blanket and offer myself love in these sensations as I share what I'm about to share today. And just to make you aware that what I'm going to share may be also quite triggering for you. So do choose whether you desire to keep listening, and offer yourself the same love that I am offering myself as well. So the reason that I share that and let you know that is because one of the ways that I have really been experiencing this recently in my own life is this real I've been in a program myself all about embodying the feminine, and so, which is again an unexpected thing. It sounds like a really juicy, fun thing to dive into, and if I'd really known what it entailed, I suspect I wouldn't have chosen it. And yet, I have chosen it, and it is so worthwhile having chosen, which is often the way with this kind of work. But it's a really, really been an interesting descent into my body, and I was already very kind of well acquainted with my body, I guess, and even still there's new layers, new depths of things that I'm able to now see, because I feel safer and safer all the time through this work. And so one of the things that really showed up quite magically along this descent that I've been into the feminine was that I was experiencing some really kind of blistery, cystitis-y kind of sensations in my in my womb. And this isn't a new symptom. This is something I have always struggled with. And I don't know what made me look, but I ended up on my old GP records. I'd actually just been signed up to my GP records online. I've always hated doctors. Not hated doctors, that's a bit strong. I've always had a resistance to doctors. I've always been witchy, kind of medicine woman healer. I totally appreciate medicine in emergency situations, just to let you know that. But yeah, there'd always been this kind of resistance around doctors, and I found myself just going over one day the old GP records, and I came across age 7. There was this note that said that I'd been diagnosed with behavioural problems. And when I looked into the notes for the year before that, there was an occurrence as well of when I had pneumonia, and all of a sudden I found myself in this recollection of a memory that I had really suppressed. And I was kind of, at the time, kind of feeling into, why is it that I have cystitis? And then it was kind of there a year after age 7 that I had developed cystitis, and I was like, oh, this is a curious thing. And I just suddenly had this memory of a real trauma in my childhood that I had never really acknowledged. So I had opened myself up to explore and discover what this sensation in my womb was about, and magically somehow ended up on these GP records. And the memory that I had, and this is where it gets difficult to share because there's a lot of shame to be tended, a lot of kind of healing here that is currently being integrated, but I realised that I had been, when I had pneumonia, I'd been in my bed and the doctor had done a home visit, and as far as I can remember, there was some abuse in that situation, some sexual abuse in that situation. And immediately as I'm sharing this, again, I can feel this kind of hot sensation, this kind of this real kind of like, oh, are you really sharing this? This is, what if you got it wrong? And that's been the story that has kind of evolved out of this. And it's like, well, even if I got it wrong, because I had kind of explored this with people and kind of been told, no, that's not what would have happened. And there's just there was a lot in that. So I had a lot of sensation to tend. I had a lot of emotion to tend in that. And as I was doing that, I allowed myself to feel it all. I allowed myself to cry. I allowed myself to just kind of nestle into a warm bath and really allow all of the emotions that were coming up, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the thinking I got it wrong, the longing for approval, the longing for love, all of it was welcome. And I actually shared this in the group that I was in, and received so much love. And there was still this sensation of like, oh, I'm not worthy of receiving this love because it's, what if I got it wrong? And there was just so much wanting of approval in that. But what was interesting to me was that there was this kind of discovery of it within this safe alchemical space that I was in. And it was really because I had allowed myself to go into that descent, to feel into the sensations of my body, to kind of communicate with the sensation of my body, and I was open and receptive to receive more information, more wisdom. And funnily enough, I'd also taken a homeopathic remedy called Staphysagria a couple of weeks before, which is all about suppressed emotion, suppressed anger, suppressed grief, and it's also a cystitis remedy, and it's also a remedy for abuse of of that kind specifically. And so it was kind of magical. And as I was crying as well, I was also visited by a ladybird, which felt kind of magical because it's like, well, this is a descent into the feminine. And now this ladybird is just sitting here kind of, yeah, it's like this real initiation into softening, opening, being vulnerable enough to feel and hold everything, to be with those uncomfortable sensations, the pain. And this is what we don't do as a society. This is what our culture doesn't invite us to do. And so without listening, it really just isn't possible to heal. It's not possible to really allow ourselves to open to life, to allow ourselves to be able to feel into our desires and use our senses, harness our senses in order to guide us into what is actually for us and not for us. And I'm trying to think of an example. It's almost like what we're taught to do in this culture, and this goes for even sorts of simple things like even going back to the issues with people's menstrual cycle. It's like we just kind of suppress it all. It's like almost touching a hot furnace and just keeping our hands there and taking painkillers while still holding it. And denying it and going, no, it's okay, it's fine, I can't feel anything, I'm going to carry on because I've got stuff to do. And in doing so, we get burnt, but we also become numb to the burning. And that also means that we have switched off from our bodies, and that also means that we have switched off from our desires, because we cannot feel desire unless we are willing to go into sensation. So it's really, really important when we disconnect to realize that we have the conscious choice to be able to reconnect. And I'm not saying that your experience is going to be as traumatic as the discovery that I made. It may be, it may not be. And it's just something that is really important to be able to choose for ourselves. Our senses are crucial. We cannot feel alive. We cannot really live a soul-led life without being able to feel safe and cultivate our own safety to feel everything and to stay in our bodies. And there really are benefits of doing that, so much more benefits than the kind of inconvenience and the descent. It's kind of, the benefits outweigh the costs, if that makes sense. So, and also recently, when somebody was considering my own program, Invoke Your Wild Creatrix, which was all about, again, a descent into the body, there was someone who was considering it, and they really did manage to, a lot of the work that I do, by the way, with clients is almost before we get to the point of devoting ourselves to the path, but there was this real opening in her, and she was able to really sit with sensation. And she said, well, as she did, it just occurred to her, like without even meaning to, she was like, it just occurred to me to be able to sit with what those fears were, the sensations of fear. And as I did, it was like this sensation of returning home. So it really is, that just perfectly summed up how we can feel so terrified of our body's sensations because our society and our culture doesn't welcome them. But actually, there is always rich gold in those sensations. So we can navigate life without our bodies, but it just won't be a soul-led, rich, fulfilling, juicy, magical life unless you do. And I guess coming to the how, because that's what this episode is all about, is the first thing is to really give ourselves permission to go there, because I think that is the first thing that we don't do, is we don't give ourselves permission to feel our feelings. We avoid our feelings, we avoid the sensations, we avoid the connection with our body. And the invitation here is to begin to be soft, be open, be gentle with yourself, and just allow yourself the permission to devote yourself to just beginning to feel the body's sensations, because it is so healing. If that feels difficult, there is always support available. I'm always available for you to reach out for me for help, and there's programs that I offer as well. If those are feeling aligned for you, you might want to check those out. I believe by the time this is released, the Invoke Your Wild Creatrix will have already been done, but there is something coming up in January which is all about the medicine woman, about healing our body through harnessing our own medicine woman. So there's always support along my path. I run also events manifesting with the moon that are very healing. So there is always something, and I'm happy to kind of help one-to-one as well. So if you need support, if you need to do this in a supported way, there is always a choice. And the other thing that I would invite you to do as a first step is, even if you don't want to dive into the sensations initially, is just to notice, like, where do you avoid feeling into your body and why? Like, what's coming up for you when you think about connecting to your body? What is coming up for you in terms of where you're avoiding going into your body because you feel like it might cost you love, approval, security, or control? Because these are the things that keep us kind of stuck in not connecting, because they keep us stuck in disconnection. And then the next thing is, really importantly, to begin to cultivate the practice of offering love to those wounded parts of your younger self that didn't receive the love that they deserved, that they desired. And as you do that more and more, you'll notice how it's easier to begin to get familiar with sensations and emotions. And always the first step is just to begin to name your sensations and describe them. And by describing them, I mean they'll often have a colour, a texture, a feeling in the body, a sensation. It could be something like, I feel it as a red expansion in my base chakra, for example. If you're not familiar with the chakras, then maybe that's not so helpful. But yeah, just describing the sensation in as much detail as you possibly can. And that really does allow you to begin to take some power back and to let your nervous system know that it's okay. And of course, there are other ways that you can then begin to heal these sensations, is kind of visualizing healing, going to them. That was something that we did in my event, Manifesting with the Moon. We visualized sending love and things through our bodies. That is another practice. And of course, then when you really want to get into it, there's real power in creating a body-led practice. Peter Levine has an excellent book, which I think I've talked about in my nervous system episode as well, called Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma. That book is so powerful if you want to really take a deep dive into sensation and healing deep trauma that's coming up. He has a couple of practices in there. Yin Yoga is another thing. I used to teach Yin Yoga, and it's a really, really powerful practice of self-inquiry into sensation, because you hold the poses for longer amounts of time. And then actually, funnily, something I did this morning, and something really funnily that my soul sister in LA had shared with me as well, that she was doing. And that is the practice of, if, for example, you have sensation in your cycle, like I did, one of the powerful practices that I was actually doing this morning was talking to my womb. It's like, well, what is it that you want me to know? What is it you want to tell me? There's also a powerful book that comes to mind called Wild Feminine, which is excellent about healing trauma, feminine trauma. So I'd really recommend that. It's by Tammy Lynn. I can't remember her surname, but I'll pop it in the show notes. And yet, the main thing is really to allow your body to talk to you. Let yourself feel what's coming up. Cry if you need to. Allow yourself to be taken into the descent. And as uncomfortable as that may feel, and it may not be that extreme either, so don't let this scare you, because it may not be that you have that much to heal. But there's a great book, again, on the descent, which is by Maureen Murdoch, called The Heroine's Journey. So again, that's a really useful resource. It's one that I recommend for all my clients. But the more that you do that, the more that you will become available to see all of the gold that is within your wounds. And there is always gold. The more you'll become available for noticing the things that I was originally going to talk about, which is about desire. You will notice more and more where you're lit up, what lights you up, where you're called, where you're being called by your body, what feels alive, what your deep desires are. What nudges you are really being told by your body, this is for you. What feels juicy, what feels magical, all of this stuff that kind of really can only be felt if we can feel in the first place. So this powerful practice of sensation, noticing sensation, is really, really crucial for that. And it's something that we so avoid. And I know one of my clients had a question for this episode, which was, what do we do about the sensations? And I guess my deep invitation is to invite you to feel them, fully feel them, because sometimes we can be like, oh yeah, no, I can feel that. But actually, really, the deep invitation is to allow yourself to fully feel them. And I know when I first had this come up, I was like, oh, I can't cry because it's going to ruin my makeup. And we put the most ridiculous roadblocks in the way of our healing, because I mean, I couldn't redo my makeup, but it was just like another way of distracting from, it's like, oh, I'll feel it later. It's like, no, we need to just go there and allow ourselves to be able to move these sensations through, to really heal the issues in our tissues, as somebody once described on my Yin Yoga training. I love that phrase. It's like really fully honouring our body's signals, our body's wisdom, and allowing it to really be our guide into our magic. And that might sound a really strange thing to say, and I'll go into that again a little bit more, but I just want to talk to you first about how inconvenient it can feel. And there's this real point here about we are always choosing in life, and it can really seem like we're not. It can really seem like we are at the mercy of life, but there's always a way to reclaim our power. And often this inconvenience is one of the sovereign prices that we pay in order to reclaim our power. And by that I mean there's two options when we're looking at how we deal with our bodies and listening into our body sensations in order to harness them for a life of soul-led magic. And there's two prices. So the first price is the victim price. We can stay victim to our bodies. We can stay victim to being disconnected and feeling the pain of, say our monthly cycle. We feel the pain, the blistery sensations, the whatever it is for you. We can stay in paying that price, that victim price, and we can stay victim to all of life, and stay victim to our magic and allow ourselves to unconsciously continue ignoring our bodies. Or we can also pay the price of choosing to go into that inconvenient, messy emotion, into those deep sensations. And those are the two options. But when we stay in victim, it means that we are unable to expand. We're unable to really be ourselves, we're unable to experience our magic, our joy, all of the richness of life. If we choose to go into the inconvenience, if we choose to go into the messy emotions, that opens up the possibility for us to reclaim our gold, for us to be able to feel the fullness of life, for us to live soul-led lives that are magical. And so those are really the costs that we weigh up. If you're kind of, I don't know that I really want to be triggered, I don't know that I really want to feel my emotions and feel all the sensations, that is the price that we are paying here when we make the choice to not do that. So I just wanted to speak a little bit to that, because when we suppress our emotions, our sensations, we are really ultimately suppressing ourselves. And this is one of the remedies that I took along my homeopathic journey. I'm also a trained homeopath. There's a big discussion in homeopathy about suppression, because for me, the more you suppress an emotion, the more it drives deeper and deeper and deeper inside the body. So as we allow ourselves to express our emotions, express our sensations, connect with our bodies, we are doing so much healing. And for me, it is absolutely critical, because if we do suppress that, we will just make ourselves ill, in my mind. That is the magical lens on this, as opposed to the traditional kind of cultural lens on it. So yeah, that was quite a lot, quite a lot in that. But yeah, connecting to our aliveness to soul is really all about accessing our bodies. Our bodies are the only place where we can create magic. So that is really a critical part of this path. And really as well, just to let you know, because I know a fear of many people is that doing this will be so traumatic and tough, but actually it can still be this soft, gentle, nurturing process. And like I say, I've only really just seen this huge trauma just now, and I've been in this work for like 10 years, so it's not like you're going to start this work and see the huge traumas immediately. This is a process of, you will see what you feel safe to see. And yeah, like I say, it's taken me probably 10 years to really be able to finally open enough to see what the deeper trauma was within my body. And I'm really curious to see what shifts around the sensations that I've had now, because I know that in the past, when I have seen things like this, the sensations or whatever is going on in my body has shifted. So this feels like a really powerful time of transformation for me as well at the moment. And yeah, I think really just allowing ourselves, the deepest invitation of all is just allowing ourselves to honour our sensations, our bodies as guides, to love them as a compass, one that may be inconvenient at times, but which allows you to fully be who you are. And even the example of this is in me sharing about my abuse in this episode, because there was so much shame, so much guilt, so much like, what if I got it wrong? This real tension, this feeling of sickness in my body. But by expressing it, I have been able to be fully my truth. I've been the fullest expression of my wild witch, and it's uncomfortable, but it's also full. It's also made this episode for me feel alive in a way that it just wouldn't have felt if I'd just come on here to talk about desires in a kind of shallow way that wasn't really honouring what was going on for me at the moment. And so I knew that there was a sovereign price to pay, a kind of a powerful price to pay for being in my power, but I just couldn't choose to not share that, because that would have had me back in my victim. That would have had me not showing up as my wild witch in my power. So that is really what we're talking about here. And again, there's always gold in this experience. There's always gold in our darkness. And I've talked about this before, because even just in the creation of The Secret Witch stuff that I share, there's this kind of call to this witchy darkness, this kind of, I've talked about how I was called by the Grim Reaper into creating death to old ways of being. There's always this kind of discomfort that I welcome in, I guess, because I know that there is something deeper in it, and I know that out of this, there is the gold that possibly I will speak to the hearts of people who have also had the same experience, who can now feel safe that actually it's okay to go into this, to feel it, to heal it. And I'm hoping that, in this way, my darkness can be that shining light for others who have experienced a similar thing. Yeah, and it's, again, I just didn't expect this to come up when this topic particularly was chosen by you. So, but it feels so much more alive. And yeah, there's just this real gold to be found. Our gifts actually are often found within our darkness, within our real wounds. And again, the darkness of the witch was all about me finding that I felt, as a kind of walking this path, my struggle was with power, with showing up powerfully as myself. And that is how I am helping other people. And I always joke with my coach, because I've said for ages, oh God, I really feel this call to like sex magic. And yet this real resistance, like I don't want to be talking about that. And even kind of just starting to explore that, you can kind of see the gold and the healing alchemy here for me, because there was this wounding around kind of sexual abuse, and being able to hold that is kind of critical if indeed my soul is calling me into harnessing our kind of creative power via the portal of sex magic, which I'm not going to go into in this episode. We have got a guest coming on to talk about sex magic, who is my sex magic teacher, if you like. And but you can see how important it is, in order for me to live my gift, to be able to go into the darkness and really heal that. So I feel like even that feels quite vulnerable sharing. I'm not saying that I'm going to be starting to teach sex magic or anything like that, but there's this kind of devotion to magic, to the magical path, which incorporates that. And as part of that, there is it's really important for me to alchemize my wounds into gold, which is what feels like it's happening. And we can only, again, do this by really honouring and feeling all the inconvenient sensations. And in doing that, I can honestly say that it feels to me like this is a magical, alive, fully expressed and truthful episode. More truthful, perhaps, than some of the previous episodes, where I've shown up kind of, again, quite scripted, thinking that I had to be a certain way, whereas now I'm really deeply opening into just showing up to speak about what is going on for me, what's really present for me, what is truthful for me. And one of actually my gifts, there's a I don't know if you've heard of Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, I think it is. There's a really good free profile that you can get. It takes quite a lot of working out, but one of my gifts that his profile shared is that my life's work is naturalness, and it's also like my deepest challenge to be natural. So in sharing like this, in sharing all the wounds, sharing all my deepest, darkest parts, I guess, is me being fully natural, me being in my gift. And there's also gold to be found in that. So that is just to let you know that whatever your darkness is, whatever you are kind of hiding, whatever you're pushing down, suppressing within your body, there is magic in that for you. And it's just waiting, your body's just waiting for you to love it, welcome it, approve of it deeply, and really, just love all that is part of your journey. And in doing so, that will allow your body sensations to become a compass for life. And, the dark sensations allow us to know when we need to be gentle, when we need to be soft, when we need to bring more love to areas. And the kind of more alive sensations let us know where we need to go, what is for us. And yeah, really, it is so important for living a souled life to be able to do this. And yet you have the capacity to be able to do this because you're a magical one and you feel everything so deeply. That is another kind of core trait of magical ones, of secret witches, is that they suppress and they try so hard to ignore their bodies, and yet it never really works for them, because we need to feel and heal as magical ones, as witches. So yeah, the deep invitation with the utmost of love is to allow yourself to soften into it. Allow yourself to have your pain alchemized into your gold. And yeah, I really just want to send so much love to you if you're listening to this and you're like, I so want to. And I just really do invite you. Like, it is the most magical, alchemical process. And I know that if you choose to allow yourself to go there, it's going to be so transformational for you. I did have, I guess there was a question that I wanted to speak to that I had from a listener, and I'll go there first, and because I think we're pretty much done. But one of the questions that they asked was, how can I accept and love the parts of my body that have been damaged by illness? And I love this question because, illness, I think, was one of the first things that really plunged me into this path. My own illness was chronic fatigue syndrome. I was exhausted. The sensations of my body had been ignored for so long that they just floored me. And so I can really feel that question of like, how do I love even those parts of my body that aren't functioning? And yeah, it was the biggest initiation for me when I had chronic fatigue. It was like my body just wouldn't move. I couldn't even walk. I'd have to be carried to the bathroom. And I think just what it did was my body just invited me to begin to listen. It was like, no, you're not listening. You're going to have to listen now because I'm going to make you. And so what I would invite you to do, if that is you, if you are struggling to accept and love the parts of your body that have been damaged or that are ill, is just beginning that communication, that conversation with your body. What is it trying to tell you? What does it long for you to know? What is it really, what is its deep desire for you to know that you need to listen to? And I think, again, like this, rather than looking at it as an illness, which is the way that we look at, the body's sensations in a modern lens, this kind of crazy modern world that we live in, rather than looking at illness through that lens, which again very much looks at it like, oh, this sensation's wrong, like there's something wrong here, you're ill. The way that modern allopathic medicine looks at things is like very symptomatic. Oh, you have this collection of symptoms, that means this. Whereas the way that I began to see it through my own journey, through specifically homeopathy, I guess, although all of the kind of different medicines that I've kind of dived into, the holistic medicines, is that we need to look at ourselves as a whole. This kind of idea that we're mind, body and soul, and we need to look at ourselves as a whole, and our symptoms really are just whispering to us. It's like, no, there's some slight imbalance here. There's something that you need to know, and I'm going to throw this symptom out just so that you begin to listen. And it's almost like they throw these things out in order to stop us numbing, in order to stop us from ignoring our bodies. And I know that was the case for me for sure when I was giving birth and I developed Bell's palsy, because my face went numb. The right side of my face just completely lost all sensation because I was so terrified, and yet I was ignoring the deep fear that was in there of giving birth. And so it was like, no, you are not ignoring that. I'm going to give you a numb face because you need to listen. and slow down. Like I was just carrying on really like fast-paced, very kind of masculine way of creating life. And that is why I knew it was time for a feminine descent. It's like, this is what the last year has been all about. And the witch is a feminine, powerful feminine force. So that is really the invitation when you're walking this path, is to soften into this, divine feminine witch energy. And part of that is really seeing that numbing our symptoms, numbing our sensations is really the way that we protect ourselves. And yet it's really like not protecting ourselves, because it's just inviting the body to throw out more symptoms. So my invitation there is to offer yourself so much love, because again, you didn't know that. You didn't know that that was what was going on. It's not how we're taught in modern day society, that this is how our bodies work. And it's also not kind of that widely accepted, because magic is science that we can't really understand yet. And so, it just feels like, firstly, I'm sending you so much love for the desire to accept and love the parts of your body that have been damaged by illness, and just really want you to know that that is just a deeper invitation, a deeper call by your body for more love. So I would invite you to offer as much love to your body, to the younger you that didn't know that this was how it worked, in order for your body to be able to really tell you what's going on, and for your wisdom to be able to tune into that. And from there, you will open up in order to become more in tune with the desires of your wild woman. But first, allow yourself to go into the body to heal what needs to be healed, to alchemize what needs to be alchemized. And I guess that's just my really deep invitation there. And of course, it is not all darkness. And that is the thing, is that there is this joy, this aliveness, this excitement, and this magic that our body is a compass for, which is what I was going to talk about. But without talking about what I've talked about, which is the darkness, we really can't be in touch with our deeper desires. And I think that is the main message for you to take away today. And I guess the deeper invitation as we end this, because it feels like a good place to end here, is just to invite you to notice, where can you listen more to your body? What is your body trying to tell you? And where do you need to listen? And just remember that there is always gold to be found, and just bring as much love as possible. And I am sending you as much love as possible in your kind of navigating of this. So if you have any questions at all, if anything has come up for you from listening to this, any triggers, by the way, I just want to witness and acknowledge that often this work can bring up triggers for people, and the deep invitation is always from me to bring those triggers to me. If something I have said, if something that you've seen in any of my spaces has been triggering for you, this goes for my one-to-one clients as well, I really, really want to know that, because that there is alchemical gold in that trigger for you, and probably for me as well. So do please, whatever is triggering you, all is welcome. All of you is welcome. Like, even the parts of you that you just feel it's not possible for those parts to be welcome, I can promise you there is the utmost of unconditional love here for you as you share them. There is nothing that is not welcome. So I want to leave you with that. All the love, all the unconditional love. And I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I don't know if enjoyed is the right word, but hopefully my truth has spoken to you. So lots of love. I felt like this episode was one of the most alive and truthful yet. My key takeaways are: It is a huge part of magical women's journeys to suppress and numb their body's sensations in this culture. And yet we have the choice to choose out of that in order to create a magical life. Through the magical lens, sensation is a powerful messenger, and we can learn to communicate with our bodies and harness their wisdom to heal. We are our own medicine. To fully feel the aliveness of soul, we must be willing to give ourselves permission to really descend into our darkness in order to alchemize it into gold. That can be inconvenient. We can have to deal with feelings of pain, shame, guilt, and fear. But it's also the only path worth walking if we desire to live a magical life. Only when we are willing to descend, even if we take it very softly and gently, can we be fully living our truth and able to shine our light into the world. Often our gold is found in the depths of our wounds, and that can be so beneficial for others and allow them to heal and alchemize too. So your darkness is a gift for the world. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.